You're a Jags fan, you're an NFL fan, and you're looking for the best Jaguar content out there. And it's simple. It's right here on the Poojie Podcast. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Be here every week for new episodes previewing matchups, recapping old matchups. Thanks for being here. Let's go. What is he doing? Nah, bro, I think he's legit. You just can't do that in that situation. Nah, you couldn't be more wrong. Yeah, I could agree with that. This is the Poojie Podcast. Duval! What's up, Pooj Crew? Episode 146 here of the Poojie Podcast. Appreciate you joining us as we recap the Jaguars' historic, massive victory over the Dallas Cowboys. We look ahead to the Thursday night action against the New York Jets and all other NFL topics surrounding the league. I do want to welcome in Kyle again for another victory episode. How are you?
Feeling great. Awesome game yesterday. Crazy how fast the season's winding down, but 3 weeks to go, and the Jags have weaseled their way into a decent spot.
I'm glad you brought that up at the very beginning of the podcast because I want to knock this out before we get further. 6 victories on the season. If you would have told us that at the beginning of the year, a lot of us would have said, hell of a season, successful season. Are we in a spot right now to where if we don't win the AFC South, people are going to think this was not a successful year?
I wouldn't say that, and I don't want to get, obviously too far ahead of ourselves with 3 games to go. I think the Titans kind of losing, have they lost 4 in a row now?
Yep, 4 in a row.
So with them kind of losing paired with us winning 2 games that we probably were supposed to lose in a row, certainly helps. And I guess actually the Ravens, what was that, 4 games ago? So, yeah, I'd say like the confidence that they're showing after the last month of play or so definitely would, make the Jaguars fans think we should be in the playoffs. It's just a shame that we didn't have that kind of during that, what was that, like 6-7 game stretch after we started 2-1.
Yeah, I'm kind of sensing the city, the fans, the vibes, even at the game yesterday, being there in that energy, starting to get the feeling that, okay, it's playoffs or bust right now as far as the fans are concerned with how much hype is around this team and how successful they're playing. But I don't want it to get lost in the weeds that 6 wins coming off back-to-back number 1 overall picks. 6 wins is a huge success for a new coaching regime, Doug Peterson. Not that I'm sitting here trying to mentally prepare myself for not making the playoffs. I just think it's important to understand this team is coming off a historically bad year where they fired their head coach after 13 games, and they are turning things around a lot quicker than many people expected. Trevor Lawrence is looking fantastic. We'll get into his numbers and things here in a second. But Jaguars 40, Cowboys 34, straight upset victory for the Jags with a Lions loss kind of sandwiched in between. But the Jaguars pull off the upset in comeback fashion again over the Cowboys. Kyle, what are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was it started off slow, and I remember I texted you. I forget exactly what I said, but it was just not a great start to it. And then coming out in the second half, we looked like a completely different team. It was kind of interesting. I just had our drive sheets pulled up. We didn't have like one of those long drives that we've talked about having, recently where we really milked the clock. So it was just something interesting, kind of finding different ways to win without, milking the clock. We had to score quickly, in the second half. We had to get 3 touchdowns, which I think we had 3 touchdowns in 9 minutes. So I don't know. It's just crazy. Trevor Lawrence throwing the ball so well, our offense looking good. Not normally the MO for Jacksonville. So again, I feel like every week we talk about it. We either start slow and then pick it up towards the end. And that happened again, but great to make those adjustments at halftime.
Yeah, it's the NFL, right? There's not one way to win a football game unless maybe you're the Chiefs and, 85% of your wins are going to come on the back of Patrick Mahomes throwing for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns and Travis Kelce having 100 yards, whatever. There's very few teams that have an identity that is almost a foolproof identity to win games. So for the Jaguars to be able to win games, whether it's grind it out, ground and pound, or, score quickly, get the ball in the air, pick up chunk yards, it's nice. It's refreshing to see that the team is capable of kind of adapting to the game flow. And When we beat the Titans last week, I think one of the big things was the Titans are not capable of adapting to game flow, and that benefited us. Whereas with the Jags this week, like you said, scoring quickly, 3 touchdowns in the span of 9 minutes, 2 to close out the third quarter, 1 to open the fourth quarter and take the lead 31-27 there, was a huge comeback for the Jaguars. But I kind of felt during the game, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that the game was never out of reach as far as the team playing poorly. It felt like the team was playing well enough to put up points, and they just weren't putting up points. And they needed one touchdown or one thing to go their way to kind of turn the tides a little bit. And that's what happened when they made it 27-17, kind of coming out of halftime late in the third quarter. Is that kind of what you saw too from the team? It didn't look like it was all lost from the beginning.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like it didn't feel like it was all over, in the first half or anything. It felt like we needed to get something going on the offensive side. You're right. But I never felt totally out of it. I'm trying to pull up here I got the sheets. We held them to a punt at the end of the half, which I thought was huge to not let them score before halftime after we had a punt. So the fumble, again, to start the game just really sets you back, kills the momentum. The second time ETN has done that, it's been a problem. And we say it every episode. They have to figure out how to stop him from fumbling. You just can't have that. You can't have that, especially when you run into your own guy on the opening drive. So that kind of stunted the momentum for a little bit. Would have liked to score before half when we ended up having to punt, and then they punted. We got the ball back, but didn't have much time. Tried to make something happen, couldn't score. Luckily, we got the ball to start the half. We did get points on the board, albeit just 3 points. Then the Cowboys answered with a field goal and then another field goal. And I think that was really the difference at the beginning of the third quarter. Holding them to field goals instead of touchdowns on those first 2 possessions kept us in the game.
Yeah, it looked like kind of once the snowball started to form for the Jaguars, they just kind of built confidence. But on that Travis Etienne note, it's his first game breaking 100 yards rushing in the last 5 games. He had gone 5 straight games without over 100 yards. He finally surpasses that number in this win against the Cowboys. The fumble is a concern of mine, not only with him, but also with Trevor Lawrence. We've talked about that as well, but back-to-back games, we've seen Travis Etienne fumble in the first quarter, kind of putting the team behind the 8 ball, if you will, not really setting us up for success. It would be great to come down and score quickly to open the game just to establish some sort of game flow. Travis Etienne, that's a problem. They do need to identify that, and I'm sure they have. He needs to figure that out. And then when it comes to Trevor Lawrence, his first 4-touchdown game of his career could not have come at a better time. 318 yards, an interception, and a fumble towards the end of the game in what looked like could have been the deciding factor of the game. But the Jags defense stepped up in that moment, as well as other moments of this game. Trevor Lawrence looked flawless, got all the receivers involved as well. But I do want to touch on the Jags defense real quick, Kyle. You allow 34 points to the Cowboys, but it didn't feel like that bad of a defensive performance. It just felt like they were allowing points. And I know that sounds so redundant, but for as bad as the defense got us into the game, it also felt like the defense helped get us out of the game too, obviously capped off by a pick 6. But the defense did kind of keep the team in the game in the late half of the game.
Yeah, totally. Like I said, to start the second half, we get a field goal. Again, it was one of our longer drives of the game. Then they get the ball back and drive right down the field, 69 yards, but the defense steps up, holds them to a field goal. Following that, we throw a bad interception, and then they get the ball back, 4 plays and a field goal. So those two, like I said, to start the half were huge, especially following, a field goal on a possession we probably wanted a touchdown, and then an interception on the very next drive to hold them to just 2 field goals was huge. And yeah, the defense, wasn't great, gave up 34 points, but we gave up 397 yards. When you look at our stats, we had 503 yards on offense. So it's like, okay, well, we still outgained them by over 100 yards. We had 2 interceptions. The crazy thing is, and I'm a big time and possession guy, but Dallas had the ball for 8 more minutes than us, which is quite significant. Obviously, when you have a pick 6 or a defensive touchdown, that doesn't, go down as time of possession, so it gets a little skewed. But I thought that was pretty wild. 3 turnovers for the Jags, 2 for the Cowboys, almost a wash. They had 154 rushing yards compared to our 192. So, we definitely had more yards, but aside from that, they had the advantage on the time of possession and the turnover battle.
And it's nice to win these types of games where maybe you look at the stat sheet and think to yourself, man, we didn't clearly blow them out in the stat sheets. It's nice to win those types of games where you just find a way to win, and that's what the Jags did. And honestly, you're a 5-8 team going up against a 10-3 team, and you're going to have to find a way to win no matter what. In those situations where it's such an underdog going down 17 points, you don't really get a good feeling that a comeback is possible. If the Cowboys were down 17 and they came back, it would have been like, okay, well, that's just the better team coming back to win. In this instance, watching the Jaguars mount that comeback in a stadium, mind you, that was easily 50% Cowboys fans. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, if not more. They were resilient and they fought through the adversity, and it was awesome to see for such a young team to do that. I think where the Cowboys went wrong is they just kind of tried to lean too heavily on Dak Prescott at times. He had a decent game, yardage-wise, some great passes. CeeDee Lamb is obviously one of the better receivers. Noah Brown had himself a game as well, but it felt to me if the Cowboys just continued to run Pollard and Zeke, the Jaguars would not win that game. And they continued to want to force Dak to throw it, and I think that played right into the Jaguars' scheme of forcing turnovers, sacks, and getting the ball back.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, that always helps stop the clock when there's incompletions or players going out of bounds on the sideline for receptions. Dak and Pollard are both pretty good with the rock. I don't know if they would have any turnovers. Dak threw 2 interceptions, leads the league in interception rates right currently, I believe. So, yeah, I mean, he's a great quarterback and they have good weapons, so I don't necessarily blame them. It just seems when you're up, a couple scores, you usually want to be a little more conservative with the play call, try to pick up the first downs on the ground, keep the clock running. Kind of a pedestrian game as far as yards for him, 256, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and was sacked 3 times. So, he had 3 touchdowns, but I feel like the defense kind of equaled that out with the 2 takeaways and 3 sacks.
And the Jaguars' offensive line also only allowing 1 sack. They lead the league in sackless performances, if you will. They have 6 games this season without a sack allowed, which is very impressive. Only 1 sack for the Cowboys, which was a major concern, I think, for a lot of people. The Cowboys' defensive front is always a threat and a force to be reckoned with. So for the Jaguars' offensive line, in a game where Cam Robinson goes out, season-ending injury, MCL injury for Cam Robinson, looks like it's going to be Walker Little stepping into that role at left tackle. Get him some good playing time, see what his value is on this team. It was just nice to see the offensive line step up as well and give Trevor some time to throw. Obviously, 4 touchdowns, over 315 yards is a great performance from him. Let's talk about the last 10 minutes of the game or so. Jaguars score to go up 31-27 with 10 minutes left. Cowboys mount a 7-minute drive to go down and score a touchdown to Noah Brown. And the touchdown to Noah Brown had the Jags defense sacked Dak Prescott there. I think it was a 3rd down pass that was the touchdown. It looked like what's up?
It was 3rd and 6.
Yeah, so it looked like the Jags defense was going to maybe force a 4th down attempt and whatever. Well, Noah Brown got wide open, looked like a little bit of a push off, but no call, and I have 0 problem with that against Tyson Campbell. But talk about the resiliency real quick from this Jaguars offense, not only having to respond after a 7-minute touchdown drive by the Cowboys, getting the ball, fumbling it, forcing a stop, and still going down to kick the game-tying field goal. Talk about that sequence of events real quick, if you could.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like it was inevitable that the Cowboys were going to score just because that's how it seems like it goes sometimes. The team that's down comes back and scores a touchdown and goes up, and then the Cowboys get the ball back, march down the field like you had mentioned. Very unfortunate that Trevor Lawrence fumbled. I mean, he was just trying to make a play. He's not a running back. They don't have the ball handling like a running back typically should. Easy to say, just go down. But he does have to be aware there that he's in open space. Guys are coming after him. So that fumble certainly hurt. I thought it was over. We were sitting there in disbelief. The Cowboys showed why it's not the best to change up your play calling at the end of the game. I feel like the Chiefs are a team that will be aggressive and try to get the first down and end the game, on first down instead of running it. Let's just pass it for the first down and get it over with. Cowboys not a very good sequence, run, timeouts after each of those for the Jaguars. And then I think it was an incomplete pass on third down. So stop the clock. We got the ball back. I was confident when Lawrence got the ball back. I felt comfortable just from seeing him in end-of-game situations previously this year. So that was a good feeling, knowing that he does have the ability to mount a comeback and go down. And then he did, which was awesome. A huge field goal. Patterson was clutch, so happy to see that. And then luckily we got that pick six in overtime.
Yeah, Riley Patterson, 4 for 4 on extra points, 2 for 2 on field goals, and no field goal larger than the game-tying field goal from, I believe it was 48 yards out after being iced by the Dallas Cowboys. Riley Patterson comes through clutch for the Jaguar faithful, and probably the most pressure kick of his career up to this point, sending the game. What's up?
I was going to say Lawrence had a couple big throws. I think it was third down. I meant to pull it up. I think it was third down when we had a couple seconds left. He had a huge throw on third down, kind of on the run. So I just wanted to say that was some great play by him the last couple plays before we kicked the field goal.
And if you go back and watch that throw, it literally went through the defender's hands at the line of scrimmage.
That is crazy.
It was an insane angle.
Could have easily been the end of the game with an interception, and now we're having a completely different conversation.
Or just a batted pass and force a 4th and 10, conversion. Like, I think it was a completion. I want to say it was to Christian Kirk. Maybe no, it was A. Jones. Yeah. And he picked up about 25 yards, got us into field goal range there. But you did mention the Cowboys play calling. They could have easily ran the ball on third down to try and have the Jags use their third and final timeout. They opted not to. That timeout ended up proven beneficial for us. Evan Ingram catches a pass for about 7 yards, gets out of bounds after a review, to where they realized they should have stopped the clock. Yeah, not from a timeout, but him being out of bounds. The next play that passed is A. Jones. They call a timeout, and they're able to get into field goal range. And then we go into overtime. Jags start with the ball, which with how the game was going and the momentum at that point, it felt like this is best case scenario. And 2 bad plays and a false start later, the Jags are punting the ball away to the Cowboys, and Cowboys just need a field goal. 3 running plays in a row. Tony Pollard picks up about 35 yards right off the bat. They get down towards the 50-yard line. And then what did we say? They kind of go against their own play calling, and they have Dak throw a pass. And not that it was Dak's fault that it was intercepted, but the risk of a throw in that situation is a lot higher than the risk of a run. And Noah Brown drops the ball, tips it right up to Rayshawn Jenkins' hands, and the rest is history. Rayshawn Jenkins races to the end zone for the game-winning pick six, and the Jags fans everywhere celebrate. Just really an amazing ending to the game.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it on TV from the camera angle. You couldn't see the ball. Like, I think Noah Brown's body was blocking it. So we just saw him kind of running, and it looked like he had scooped it up from the ground. But luckily the refs saw it clean, because I feel like you've seen some plays in the NFL where the refs blow it dead, and then it ends up, costing the team. Like, maybe they rule it incomplete or something, and then they overturn it to a turnover, but we don't get the touchdown. So kudos to the refs on that. But yeah, man, just an awesome game. I was going to say a couple other things I had here was just, we had 3 receivers with 6 or more receptions: Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram. So just awesome that Trevor Lawrence is comfortable, it seems like, to spread it around to a little bit of everybody. Jamal Agnew, kind of the utility guy. He had a couple big plays. I think he had 3 carries for 50-something yards or something like that. So a couple big plays, moving the chains. And then the guys on defense, Jenkins had 18 tackles, 2 interceptions, and then Aluakon had 14 tackles. So for 2 guys to be 14 or more tackles is absolutely insane. So just looking at the stat sheets like that really just shows you that it was a whole team effort. Everybody was going above and beyond.
Yeah, Rayshawn Jenkins, I think statistically had one of the best games of an NFL safety, the most tackles.
Yeah, I've never seen that many tackles by a safety in a game.
Accompanied with 2 interceptions. I think he's the first player in NFL history with over 15 tackles and multiple interceptions in a game. So he had himself
a touchdown.
And a touchdown. And his first interception, while not as big as the second one, obviously, the first one was when the Jags were down 27-17 and really
good field position.
Really flipped the momentum and changed the tides and, returned it down to the 30. And a few plays later, the Jaguars scored. I will say about that last play before we move ahead to talk about the Jets game. That last play, what was exciting was it was a 3rd and 4. So when you saw the ball get tipped and dropped, I think a lot of fans were excited because they realized we would get the ball back because it was a 3rd and 4 play. It was going to be 4th down. They were likely going to punt it, and we would get the ball back with a chance to go down and win on a field goal. That was the initial excitement, I think, from a lot of us. But then you see him running the other way, and like you mentioned, no officials blowing the whistle. We were like, wait a minute, this is still going on. This is live. Yeah. And it was just an awesome ending. The fans in the stadium couldn't have been better. Honestly, a lot of Cowboys fans, but didn't really experience any, disrespect, or there was no bad blood. It felt like, I think the worst things that were said were, oh, well, we'll still be in the playoffs and y'all won't be. And, that kind of stuff. And we had to kind of teach them how NFL playoffs work with divisional leaders. But it was a great game and a fun ending. People out there listening, thank you for being here. We're going to jump into the Jaguars Jets. Unless, Kyle, do you have anything else from this game?
No, I think we covered it all. Like I said, I just thought it was awesome that they were spreading it to 3 different receivers that had over 6 receptions. And then the effort on defense. Smoot had a couple big plays behind the line too. We've always been a big fan of him. So, yeah, I mean, again, giving up 34 points is not ideal. But yeah, not sure if we're gonna have to worry about that against the Jets coming up here.
You gotta find ways to win games, and if they score 34, all you have to do is score 35, and the Jags scored 40. So we'll take it. Jaguars moved to 6-8, 1 game out of the first place position in the AFC South. The Cowboys fall to 10-4, clinched the playoffs still with the Commanders' loss on Sunday Night Football. But the Jaguars definitely needed that win much more than the Cowboys did as far as the playoffs are concerned. As things stand right now, Jaguars have a 44% chance to make the playoffs, and that is by way of the AFC South Championship or divisional title. And we'll get into some of that here in a second. But let's move forward to the Jaguars Jets Thursday Night Football. Again, thanks for being here on episode 146. Those out there listening, find us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like the video, or if the videos are too long for you to listen to when you're sitting here getting excited about the Jags, go find us on your preferred podcast streaming platform as well. Jaguars Jets, 8:15 p.m. Eastern, Thursday Night Football coming up. Christmas week in a few days now, December 22nd. Going to be a fun one, going to be a chilly one, and going to be a meaningful one for both of these teams, as both teams are scratching and clawing to try and make the playoffs. Kyle, thoughts on this game, Jags-Jets?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been out on the Jets for the last couple of weeks. I know we've talked about it. The Mike White hype was real, and he's a gamer, but I felt like after that first game, it was going to kind of settle down. That seems to be the case so far. They got Zach Wilson back in on a short week coming up for the Thursday night game. I don't know if White will be ready or not. And quite honestly, I'm not sure who I would prefer as a Jags fan. I mean, Wilson does have his moments, and he can make some good plays on the run. So, looking at the stats here, and I kind of referenced it earlier about the Jags offense, we're currently 6th in yards per game for an offense and 12th in points per game. I can't remember the last time we were in the top 10 or near the top 10 for those stats. So that's incredible. We are going to be running into a brick wall with the Jets defense. They've been holding teams to 18.8 points per game. That's 4th in the NFL. Again, our defense not the best, giving up 23.4, which is 21st. Definitely seems doable if we can put up 3 or 4 touchdowns. We give up a lot of yards. The Jets don't give up a lot of yards. They're 3rd in yards allowed. So I could see this being an interesting game. I think that they might get some yards on the ground and that we can answer, but I'm not sure how it's going to shake out, to be honest.
Yeah, it really feels like our strengths match their strengths and our weaknesses match their weaknesses, if you will. So it's a very unpredictable game from that standpoint of the Jets defense is very, very good. And Sauce Gardner might be one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and we can talk about him ad nauseum and have fun, pulling for him. Not this week, but he is a fun guy to watch. And Trevor Lawrence and the Jags are going to have their hands full. This past week, Zach Wilson did put up over 300 yards. That was accompanied by what? 1 interception? Yeah, 1 interception and 2 touchdowns. But the Jets offense, the Jets running game, only 50 yards on the ground, led by Zonovan Knight. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of Zonovan Knight?
I have. Yeah, he had a huge week last week or the week before, but they have been kind of rotating through running backs on the Jets.
Zonovan Knight and Michael Carter are the two running backs right now, obviously with Breece Hall out. The Jags defense literally needs to force the Jets to throw, and I think that's how the Jags win this game. You got to establish on the defensive side of the ball that the Jets are not going to run it on you, which I feel comfortable with. The Jags run defense has been solid at points this year. Maybe not the best of late, but I think that's the key to this game is stop the run early, force them to pass it, and get up early in this one. And as fun as it is to come from behind and win, it would be nice to just kind of get a lead and, hold a lead like we did against the Chargers back in week 3 of this season. So I'll run through some of this real quick with the history of these two teams playing each other. Some interesting stuff. The series is actually tied 8-8.
Okay.
These teams have played each other 16 times. Both teams have won 8 times. Most recently, the Jets won. The Jets won in New York 26-21. Before that, the Jags won in Jacksonville 29-15 back in 2019. What's interesting is in these 16 matchups, the road team has only won 4 times. So the away team is 4-12, and the Jaguars are 3-7 all time in New York, with their last win coming in 2009. So much like we talked about with the Titans in Nashville, it's been a long time since the Jaguars have won in New York. Does that type of history give you any pause or anything, or is that all in the past, nothing to worry about?
Yeah, not really. No, I don't.
I feel like it's just not recent enough to where it matters.
Yeah, it doesn't mean much. In all honesty,
we were up there for one of the games. I can't remember which one it was, but
I was trying to remember if that must have been like 2013, maybe
13 or 14. All I know is Blake Bortles threw an interception at the end of the game, and we had a chance to win it. But
sounds about right.
Painful loss there. But a lot of these games have been close. I will say that a lot of one-possession games. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But the big storyline is if Zach Wilson starts, Zach Wilson versus Trevor Lawrence, and
1 versus 2.
Yeah, 1 versus 2, and we have Frank Gore to thank for us even having Trevor Lawrence when he was with the Jets, when Frank Gore was with the Jets. So, but this is a meaningful game for these two teams as far as the playoffs are concerned. I think a lot of football fans back in September and October, when we were getting tired of watching the Denver Broncos on primetime, looked ahead to Thursday night games, and we were like, what is the NFL doing, putting the Jags-Jets on Thursday night football? But it's a tasty matchup now with both these teams fighting for a position in the playoffs. The Jets have a 20% chance to make it at this point. That's according to 538 online, which is a great resource for all these percentages. So big game here. Kyle, anything else on the Jags-Jets?
No, again, I think it'll depend. I don't know if we're waiting on an injury report for Mike White versus Zach Wilson. I mean, Zach Wilson did have a decent game. Maybe the team's kind of forgiven him. I think the best way to earn that forgiveness is to win. If you don't win, at least play a tight game, which is what he did. Do we know if Trayvon Walker is going to be playing this week? He was out last week. What's the story on him?
I think he should be playing because I think he could have gone last week and they held him out precautionary. I think because it was a short week coming up and they felt we don't want him at 50% for this game and then get hurt again and be out for a longer period of time. I think he will be back in the lineup for the Jags.
Yeah, I want him back. I want him healthy, and we just need to be firing all night. Probably every play we should be blitzing. You saw the Bills versus Jets game. Granted, it was some really bad weather 2 weeks ago, but Mike White was just taking hit after hit, and he could not get his feet underneath him. He could not get set up for passes. And I think whether it's Zach Wilson or Mike White back there, we need to just put the pressure on him, like you said, force them to throw. And then on the offensive side, no sauce on the side, please. We cannot throw the ball to Sauce Gardner. I don't care if Christian Kirk is being shadowed by him all game, then Christian Kirk's not getting a target. That's simple as that. Sauce Gardner is so good. We have other people to spread the ball around. Clearly, Trevor Lawrence is comfortable. So we just need to not force it. We need to know where he's at on the field. Hopefully we can stick maybe twins over there, 2 wide receivers on the side, and kind of create some confusion for him, and that'll open up players elsewhere on the field.
Yeah, with the emergence of Zay Jones and Evan Ingram over the last month, it has made me feel more comfortable about this game because even if Kirk or that side of the field is locked up, Trevor has plenty of weapons to still pick up yards and points and all that good stuff. So I agree with you there, though. Avoid Sauce at all costs, and you got to find the open guy, whether it's Ingram or Zay Jones or Marvin Jones. Who knows who, or Jamal Agnew? Who could it be? It's a lot of options for Trevor Lawrence there. Another interesting note, obviously, back in Week 8, James Robinson traded to the Jets. He was traded in Week 8, and since the trade, he's had 29 carries for 85 yards and has not suited up in 3 games. So I think that was a big storyline that people were going to be looking at going into this game. But with his kind of disappearance altogether, seems like that's not really going to be a big one.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the deal is with him. I could see him playing and just having a huge career day on us. But, if he's hurt or something, then I don't know. But the thing is, they have Michael Carter, who I think had been hurt. Obviously, Breece Hall went out with an injury earlier this year. They got, like you said, Xavier Knight or whatever. And then they still have Ty Johnson. Was that the other guy they had back there? So, yeah. I mean, they're playing all of these guys ahead of James Robinson. I don't fully get it. So maybe he's hurt or something more is going on.
It's got to be an injury thing because it doesn't make sense. I feel like the best guy on the team with Breece Hall being out.
Yeah, and I liked him. He was everybody liked him in Jacksonville. He's a good locker room guy, hard worker. Like I do wish he was still on the Jags, and I want him to have a good career. Just sucks he hasn't been playing.
Yeah, and just a note on the Jets defense, because I did go back and watch some of the Jets-Lions game. Lions opened up the game with 14 plays, 73 yards, and an 8-minute drive, and got stuffed at the 1-yard line on 4th and goal. So the Jets goal line defense stood up there. However, 2 minutes later, they allowed a punt return to Khalif Raymond, and that's how the Lions got on the board first. So maybe Jamal Agnew can get some opportunities if their special teams isn't top tier. We'll see what Jamal Agnew can do. He almost had a kick return 2 weeks ago against the Titans. I know he's itching to get one before the season ends, whenever that might be. So we'll see how that goes. Real quick, I do want to pull up Trevor Lawrence's stats on the season because these are impressive numbers compared to last year. 66% completion percentage, 3,520 yards, 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, but the 9 fumbles is a big issue. That's, I think, tops in the NFL right now as far as quarterbacks go. Granted, 4 of those came in that week 4 loss to the Eagles when it was like raining cats and dogs. But still, 9 fumbles is way too many for a quarterback. But nonetheless, really good numbers. Almost more than a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, which is amazing for Trevor Lawrence. So good numbers from him. Anything else on the Jags Jets, Kyle?
Nope. Short week. Have to prepare right. Have to have the right scheme in. Everybody needs to be on the same page. I mean, this is crunch time. Can't look ahead. Got to win this game. But knowing that we have the Texans still doesn't settle my mind at all because they've been playing some really tough football. So we need to get this win and then finish out the rest of the season strong.
Yeah, the Texans almost pulled off back-to-back massive upsets against the Cowboys 2 weeks ago. Cowboys went on a 98-yard drive to win it, and then lost to the Chiefs in overtime this past week in Houston. So some pretty good football from the Texans. I will say if the Jags win this week, their chances of making the playoffs move up to 57%. If the Jags win and the Titans lose, the Jags' chances move up to 64%. Ultimately, at this point of the season, if the Jags win out, they're in the playoffs. It's that simple. With the Jags winning and the Titans losing on Sunday, the Jags went out. They're in the playoffs, winning the division at 9-8. So that's what we're looking at now. But you're right. Can't look ahead too far because we got the Jets in front of us, and we need to handle our business. Titans will be playing the Cowboys this week, I believe it is, or the Texans this week. So we'll see what happens in those games. So let's get on to other NFL topics real quick. And I do want to start this off by saying the week 15 was the first week in NFL history where 3 teams overcame 17-plus point deficits. First time that's ever happened in NFL history. Jags come back from 27-10 down against the Cowboys to win 40-34. The Bengals were down 17-0, scored 34 unanswered points, and ended up winning 34-23 over the Bucs. And then the comeback heard around the world. Vikings on Saturday down 33-0 at halftime against the Colts. and storm all the way back 39 second half points to win 39-36 against the Colts, completing the largest comeback in NFL history.
Yeah,
Crazy stuff.
It was crazy. It was a great week of NFL. Feel like we've had some stinkers, but we've had some good weeks, and this would definitely be one of the good weeks.
Yeah, and 3 games on Saturday. I kind of want to forget about the Browns-Ravens game. That was just kind of like an ugly stepsister kind of game. Like, why is that even here? 13-3 Browns over the Ravens. But the other 2 games were fantastic. The Bills and Dolphins went down to the wire, game-winning field goal for the Bills there, and the Vikings Colts ended up being exciting after it looked like it was going to be a terrible game. So, but week 15, what are we buying, Kyle, after week 15?
All right. Well, I think you had mentioned them last week, but I'm going to kind of follow up. But the Bengals might be hitting their stride, and I think they're going to win the AFC North. So obviously the Ravens losing to the Browns hurt. Lamar Jackson's still out. I know the teams play each other, I think, the last week of the season, so that very well could be for the division. But that's 6 in a row for the Bengals. They are really hitting their stride. And then also, I was going to buy this. I don't think I'm taking it from you, but I think the Texans are better than like 6 or 7 teams in the NFL. I think a 1-12-1 team is actually better than like 6 teams in the NFL right now.
I mean, yeah, like they've been playing good football. Like their only win is against the Jags.
Which, yeah, then it's like, what does that make us? But, I mean, I'm looking at the standings in some of their games recently, but, like, the Texans and the Colts, like, I think they could beat the Colts. I think they could beat the Rams, the Cardinals, the Bears, the Packers, the Falcons, the Saints. I mean, like, I don't understand it. They've played really, really tight games. So I'm not sure what the roster turnover will look like for them next year. I'm sure a quarterback's on the radar. Damian Pierce, right, is the rookie running back.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I couldn't even name that many players on their team, but they're hanging in there. So I don't know, just something I was thinking about after the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, I like that about the Texans because they are the team that you just don't want to play because you think they're easy, but they're not, and they'll take you by surprise. And then your other bye of the week, the Bengals. I do have a question about them right now. Are they, would you say right now, the best team in the AFC?
No, I would still put the Bills and the Chiefs probably ahead of them. And if I had to pick somebody to win the Super Bowl out of those 3, it would definitely be the Bills or the Chiefs ahead of the Bengals, just because of the firepower and stuff. But with that said, the Bengals scoring 34 unanswered, putting up some big numbers the last couple of weeks. I don't want to discredit them too much. They're not that far behind.
Yeah, I don't know. I just have a weird feeling about the Bengals. They did this last year. They're hitting their stride. I feel like they're the hottest team right now. Maybe they're not the best team in the AFC, but they're winning games by big margins and putting teams away, even coming back from 17 points down. I like what I'm seeing from them. It's fun to watch. I'm not too sure what I'm buying this week simply because we're getting down to crunch time and it's kind of getting clearer who's going to make the playoffs and who's not going to make the playoffs. If I did have to buy someone, it would be the 49ers winning the NFC and being the Super Bowl representative of the NFC. I think their defense is untouchable at the moment. I think they're allowing 15 points a game, which is unheard of, averaging 2 touchdowns allowed on defense. Granted, they did beat the Seahawks on Thursday night. Wasn't the prettiest game, but they got the job done. And when you pride yourself on being a defensive football team, you're not going to have a lot of pretty games. A lot of it's going to be ugly. It's going to be grindy. And they end up getting the victory on Thursday night. And they just keep looking ahead. I mean, they're going to win the division. I think they already did win the division, right? They locked it up.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So they locked it up. Jimmy G goes out and, everyone's all up in arms. Trey Lance was out, then Jimmy G, but Brock Purdy comes in and they just haven't missed a step. They continue to play very good football. The Christian McCaffrey trade proves to be that much more important. I would say right now, the 49ers are my favorite in the NFC with how they're playing. And I bought the Eagles last week. But with Jalen Hurts, the news on Jalen Hurts, who knows what's up with his injury. I like the 49ers right now. What are you selling after week 15, Kyle? You selling anything?
I don't know. I feel like we've sold off everything that we can so far. The Dolphins might not make the playoffs. Maybe I'm selling the Dolphins playoff spot to the highest bidder. I mean, they're lucky that the Patriots lost. That was really big that the Patriots lost. So yeah, I don't know. That's a weird division, and it's going to get real tight. Obviously, like we were talking about for the Jags and the Titans, the only person from the AFC East is going to be the winner, because I think the wild cards are probably going to be like a, I don't know, 9-8 team.
Yeah.
I guess we could go 9-8 if we win out, but I'm just looking at the standings here. It's going to be tricky.
3 straight losses for the Dolphins, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Niners, Chargers, Bills, which is by no means an easy stretch of the schedule, but still 3 straight losses, kind of right up there with the Titans collapse. Titans 4 straight losses.
Yeah, and I don't know if I sold them earlier this year, and forgive me if I did, but now I think the Chargers are going to make the playoffs. They've won 2 in a row. They beat the Titans and the Dolphins, and then they finished with the Colts, Rams, and Broncos. So I think they could easily be in the playoffs.
Yeah, that was a big win for them over the Titans for the playoffs, because they're not going to win the division by any means, but they can make the wild card spot. So I could see that happening. But they're just such an interesting team. Like they're almost like the Vikings, where they're just confusing as shit, and like I don't know what to expect from them week in and week out.
Right. It's going to be a lot of interesting last couple of weeks. The schedule makers definitely did it right, because there's a lot of interdivision games and stuff going on that could ultimately play a hand in who gets what seed and who even makes the playoffs.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's gonna be crazy. I'm gonna sell the Commanders right now, which might be easy because they just lost last night and kind of affected their playoff chances. I think right now they're still slotted to make the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, let's see here. They are the 7th. They are the 7th team. But with the way that the Lions are playing right now, I think the Lions are going to find their way into the playoffs, and the Commanders will not. I'm looking at the rest of the Commanders' schedule. Looks like another loss coming up on Saturday, against the 49ers, then the Browns, then the Cowboys. So 2-1 at best, it feels like, to close out the season. And you look at the Lions, they have the Panthers, the Bears, and the Packers. So the Lions could easily win out and go on a, what would that be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9-1 to close the season in their last 10 after starting 1-6.
Insane.
That's crazy. So, I'm going to sell the Commanders playoff spot to the Lions in this moment, because I think the Lions get the job done. Okay. But these playoff races are crazy. I think I underestimated how awesome the 7th wildcard spot or the 3rd wildcard spot would be for the playoff races, because it just opens up the door for so many other opportunities and scenarios to happen, which is a lot of fun. You selling anything else?
Kind of, after looking at the schedule, we need to completely sell Christmas Day games and get new games in there. We got the Packers at Miami, Broncos at Rams, Buccaneers at Cardinals.
So bad.
Are they doing the NBA on Christmas this year? Because
they are. This is the first year that the NFL has played on Christmas Day in a long time, if ever.
Well, the NFL is making it tough for me right now to watch them if they're going to have that as the game. They definitely need to keep those weekends, I feel like, open and put the hottest teams or the best games in that day, in that slot. Yeah,
flex them out and stuff would be a lot more fun.
There's not a ton of prime matchups, though, honestly, looking at the slate.
Let's jump ahead. Let's jump ahead to Week 16. Go for it, Key. Take us there.
Oh, is that – yeah, best game. Sorry about that. No, I was just looking at it because I think you're talking about the Lions and just piggybacking off of that. They play Carolina. I think Carolina's technically still in the hunt. I'm surprised they didn't win against the Steelers this week. But like you mentioned, this is a huge game for the Lions. They're currently favored by 2.5, but I mean that's going to be an interesting one to watch, because if they win, then gets real serious for them.
For the Panthers, that is, you're saying?
Well, no, if the Lions beat the Panthers, it gets real serious for the Panthers.
They'll be sitting there at 8-7, and if the Commanders lose, they'll be 7-1. So the Lions will move into the playoff picture.
Yeah, so I think that should be a close game too. What do you got?
Oh God, Monday night game is
Chargers Colts. Like they didn't do us any favors.
The Phillip Rivers Bowl.
Yeah, all of his kids are going to be there to watch.
Yeah, they got the whole front row.
The whole front row, spot on the bench. Jaguars Jets is up there for best game of Week 16, just from a record and
I think it's got to be
meaningfulness. Is that our meaningfulness? Standpoint. That standpoint. I'm going to go with the Eagles Cowboys though for best game of Week 16. Dallas right now favored by 6. I think that's because of the Jalen Hurts injury, but you can't count out our boy Minshew coming in for the Eagles, and all he's got to do is throw it to AJ Brown and give it to Miles Sanders and let them do their thing.
Yeah, I guess it's not the worst thing in the world if he has to miss this, given that the Cowboys lost last week. Kind of gave them a little bit of breathing room. I think the Eagles can still – I think they just have to win one of the last 3 games to lock up the 1 seed or something like that. So yeah. It's not the worst game in the world, especially if he is hurt, try to get right before playoffs. But on the other foot, you could argue that the Cowboys, this is going to be a big game. Cowboys are going to be bringing their all, so you kind of want Hurts to be in that moment to get the playoff-type reps.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Any thoughts on the Giants-Vikings game? Because I feel like that's another under-the-radar, pretty decent matchup based on records.
I'm sick of the Vikings. I don't even know how to form a thought on them, to be honest with you.
Just get them out of here. Fun team. Yeah.
Giants had a huge upset, or not a huge upset, but a huge win and an upset against the Commanders yesterday. They're probably feeling nice. They're probably feeling confident, and they're probably feeling that the Vikings are definitely beatable.
Yeah, and if the Giants win, I think that all but locks up their playoff spot. If they can move to 9-5-1, I think that kind of locks them into place if they're able to get the win there. But there are some good matchups. Unfortunately, none on Christmas Day. I mean, Packers at Dolphins could be a fun one. Broncos at Rams. I hope there's a good NBA game on at that time. I don't want to watch that one at all for a second. Yeah, maybe we'll get Christmas Story going or something during that time slot.
Yeah, might have to. I was going to say the other thing. I haven't seen as many under 40 totals, I don't think, ever in a NFL season. And I don't know if that's because of like some of these, like the New Orleans Browns total right now is 31.5.
What? 31.5?
Baltimore, Atlanta's 37-38, Jags, Jets 37-38, Cincinnati, Patriots 39.5, Texans, Titans 38, Washington, San Francisco 39.5, Vegas, Pittsburgh 39.5, Denver, Rams 35.5. It's just crazy.
So is it worth just doing like a 7-game teaser and just teasing all of them down 6 points and taking them? Well, the Ravens Browns game this past week was 16 points total. So crazy. The unders are hitting in some of these. Those are crazy numbers though. Browns Saints 31.5 points. That's absurd. That's like an Iowa Nebraska game.
I know.
That's like Big Ten West football right there. That's crazy. Any other games you're looking at for Week 16, or you want to get to lock of the week?
Yeah, let's get to the lock of the week, which I'm going to just roll with what I talked about earlier, and I think I had them as a lock of the week last week, the Lions. I think I'm going back to the well. Lions over the Panthers. They just beat the Jets. The Jets have one of the best defenses in the league. It wasn't an easy win, but they put up a fight. They showed they can do it. I don't think they should have any problem handling Carolina, although Carolina has been playing tough the last couple of weeks, and they still are in the mix. I think that Man Campbell and the Lions are just rolling too hard right now.
I agree with that, and there's a lot of these close spreads that I really do like. That's definitely one of them. They're clicking on all cylinders. You kind of wonder if it's going to get to a point and burst. I don't see that happening against the Panthers. My lock of the week is going to be the Bengals as 3.5-point favorites against the Patriots. I feel like that is handicapped as a namesake brand kind of recognition, Patriots versus Bengals. I don't think these teams are 3 points apart. And I think the Bengals showed that in the second half yesterday against the Bucs. I think the Bengals build off of that. I feel like that start against the Bucs was maybe like the little wake-up call that they needed in December to kind of get moving in the right direction again. I think the Bengals come out, and after that heartbreaking performance by the Patriots, losing the way they did to the Raiders. I think the Bengals come out and crush the Patriots in this one. Did you see that ending, the Patriots-Raiders?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure about that interception. First of all, that was reviewed.
The touchdown catch?
Or a touchdown and then confirmed. Like, that seemed a little questionable. And then the fact that, yeah, I mean, Stevenson starting the pitch, obviously, what's his name's to blame, but
Myers.
But Stevenson doing that probably just triggered a thing in Myers' head, like, oh, I guess maybe we're
pitching it.
Play in the huddle, but maybe we're just pitching it now. Like, you shouldn't think that, but in the heat of the moment like that, and, it's the end of the game and you have the ball, like, I don't know, your brain kind of stops. And he's just like, oh, I guess I got to pitch it. So feel bad all the way around. They should have just kneeled it, or they should have thrown it deep. Belichick saying, like, he felt Mac Jones couldn't get it to the end zone. Like, I don't know, dude. If you're in the NFL and you can't throw it 55, 60 yards, like, or at least close to it, I'm not sure, like, that's a good thing to admit out loud. So,
yeah, it was kind of a weird shot, and just kind of, I get he's trying to be transparent, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, our quarterback can't throw it 50 yards. That's not a good look.
And I feel bad. There was a quote Mac Jones said he should have tackled Chandler Jones at the end. Like, nobody is expecting him to have to tackle a defensive lineman, but it's just so many things went bad on that play. And ultimately, Mac Jones is on his back watching Chandler Jones run into the end zone. So I do feel for him. Literally,
Mac Jones making the tackle, yeah, that could have saved it. But there were so many other things wrong with that entire play from the beginning, from the play call to the pitch to the funny thing is Chandler Jones almost tackled Stevenson in the backfield at the very beginning of the play. And
I saw an interview and he said he missed the tackle and then he got up. He did say that consciously he kind of thought that, pitches can happen type of thing. So I'm not saying he knew it was going to happen, but he was like there. And then I think when he saw that Stevenson threw it back to Myers, then he was like, oh shoot, like, are they doing this? Like, I guess I could be like,
we're just going to camp out.
Yeah.
I mean, Mac Jones had zero chance. Like, he would have had to pull him down by the face mask, which go for it.
Yeah. You might as well. They'll get a field goal or try at a field goal, but you might as well. So
trip him up. But it looked at that point, like, it was almost like Chandler Jones went like beast mode, where he was like, the second he got the ball, nothing was standing in his way. He would have pushed Mac Jones 4 feet under the earth before he got tackled, it felt like, just from watching it. So, crazy ending. A lot of crazy endings in games this week with field goals, and the pick six in Jacksonville was a huge one, and then obviously that ending as well. But upset special week 16, Kyle. You got an upset you like?
Oh, I got an upset I like. Houston Texans are winning in Tennessee.
Whoa.
Put it on the board.
Put it on the board.
That's Saturday. That's Saturday, Christmas Eve at 1:00. Probably not going to have a ton of eyes on it. Maybe it will. Just kind of one of those lazy afternoon. Oh, wait, there's a football game on a Saturday. Okay. And then next thing you know, Texans are up 14-7 in the fourth quarter.
I like it. I mean, hell, from what we've seen the last 2 weeks, I'm afraid to play the Texans in 2 weeks. And if I'm the Titans and I've lost 4 in a row, I'd be afraid to play the Texans this week with how they played against the Cowboys and how they played against the Chiefs the back-to-back weeks. Those are not easy games to even keep close, let alone win.
And that's kind of my thinking. Both of those offenses and teams are much better than the Titans, or should be much better. The Titans don't score a lot of points. They play one-dimensional type football. I think that the Texans should be able to keep it just as close as those games, but actually might be able to pull this one out.
I'm here for it. I am here for it. Let me get my upset of the week. I will go with do I want to take that one? The Raiders over the Steelers. Raiders are 2.5-point dogs right now. And I think that the Raiders, obviously a fluky win that they had. I just think the Raiders have more talent and can get the job done in Pittsburgh on a Christmas Eve night football. Nothing like a Christmas Eve game like the Raiders fans and the Steelers fans. Just such a Christmassy, jolly bunch of people.
Right.
Nothing screams Christmas like those two fan bases. Any other upsets we like? I mean, I like yours. That's a great one. I do think the Browns get the job done against the Saints. That's about it. I don't have anything else. Anything else from you, though, on week 16, Kyle, before we put this one in the books?
No, it just every week's getting kind of crazier. Teams are sliding, teams are making charges. So I think it'll be interesting to see how some of these teams finish up, especially the Giants, the Commanders, the Dolphins, the Jags, and the Jets. I think those 4-5 teams right now are in the mix and kind of playing each other and stuff. So we will see how it goes.
Yeah, should be a fun finish. I don't know if it's like this every year or it's only because the Jags are in the mix, but feels like there's a lot of parity right now and a lot of teams right around that 500 mark, which I know the NFL loves. Typically, we'd have a lot of teams with 2 or 3 wins at most. We have a lot of teams with 5, 6, 7 wins, which is awesome for the league. It's been a lot of fun to watch this season, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch the season play out through December into January, with the regular season commencing January 8th, I guess it is, that Sunday. So it should be a fun final few weeks of the NFL season. But Kyle, I appreciate you being here and doing this. And if anything, if yesterday taught me anything, it's that if the Jaguars ever become consistently good, this city is going to be a mess and people aren't going to know how to act or behave. And it's going to get crazy because yesterday was a shit show downtown. I've very rarely seen that type of madness in Jacksonville over a sporting event. And it was all because the Jaguars pulled off a massive upset victory over the Cowboys. So the Jags need to be good. The city loves this team. The city supports this team to the ends of the earth through so much shit in the last 10 years. We just need to be good consistently, and we'll see how it goes. But appreciate you being here again. And fans out there, thank you for listening. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment your thoughts as always. Go make this world a better place and take care.
How can I be the man when you're the man? How can I be the man when you're the man? How can I be the man when you're the man?